The countdown is on, and it is time for the road to WrestleMania to begin. This is some fans, whether hardcore or casuals, favorite time of year. That being the 30-man and 30-woman Royal Rumble match. Today we're going to take a look at that specific match all in itself. We're going to look at the Royal Rumble, but we're not going to look at every Royal Rumble throughout the history of World Wrestling Entertainment or the World Wrestling Federation. We're going to take a chunk out of those matches and dissect them. We're going to look at every Royal Rumble match from the Ruthless Aggression Era. From 2002, when WWF had to get the F out, all the way through the beginning of the PG era in 2008. So we have to kick off our journey at the first stop, being the WWF Royal Rumble in 2002. Now, when looking at the Rumble in 2002, in my mind, I thought it was the WWE Royal Rumble because we always remember the Ruthless Aggression Era kicking off in 2002. But what some fans may forget is that it was actually still the World Wrestling Federation through around March of this specific year until it would transition over to World Wrestling Entertainment following the lawsuit with the World Wildlife Fund. However, during this time, it was still the World Wrestling Federation, and the Royal Rumble of this year would not only see the return to in-ring competition from legend in Mr. Perfect, it would also see the Game Triple H return from his horrible quadricep injury that he suffered during a match on Monday Night Raw, and he would come back and win the 30-man Royal Rumble, eliminating Kurt Angle, thus punching his ticket to WrestleMania 18 and challenging Chris Jericho, the undisputed champion who won the championship back at Vengeance 2001 by defeating The Rock and Stone Cold in the same night. Triple H would go on to WrestleMania 18 and claim the undisputed championship by beating Chris Jericho and also sticking it to his wife in Stephanie McMahon, who aligned herself with Jericho going into WrestleMania. Triple H came in always being known as the heel, now as the babyface, and would walk out with both championships held high above his head. This match in and of itself was a solid Rumble, having the likes of The Rock, Triple H, Stone Cold, Mr. Perfect, and a few other names along the way, also featuring a match between Ric Flair and Vince McMahon that took place on this pay-per-view. However, like I said, this pay-per-view and this Rumble match is known mainly for Triple H returning from injury and punching his ticket to WrestleMania 18. Now let's continue on down our journey to 2003. The 2003 Rumble, in my opinion, was one of the strongest of the entire Ruthless Aggression era. Not only did it crown Brock Lesnar as the winner of the 30-man Rumble, where he would go on to WrestleMania 19 and challenge the undisputed champion in Kurt Angle, but it also had Lesnar compete in the opening match of the night against a former rival in The Big Show to see if he would even qualify for the Rumble match to begin with. The 30-man match also was the last time we saw Jeff Hardy in a WWE Royal Rumble until his return to the WWE in 2007. This was also the first Royal Rumble matches for two specific individuals who would become megastars of the Ruthless Aggression Era and beyond, that being Dave Bautista, aka Leviathan, and the Doctor of Thugonomics, John Cena, who would make his Rumble debut alongside his tag team partner in Bull Buchanan, also known as B Squared. However, the Royal Rumble match would really come down to a multitude of men, including the Big Red Machine Kane, The Undertaker, and Brock Lesnar, where Lesnar would go on to eliminate The Undertaker, crowning himself as the 2003 Rumble winner, and moving on to challenge Kurt Angle in one of the best undisputed championship matches of the Ruthless Aggression Era and one of the best SmackDown matches to ever take place on the grandest stage of them all. And if we turn our attention to the Raw brand, a very important and pivotal match for WrestleMania 19 also continued their feud in the Royal Rumble match, where Christian would come out disguised as Chris Jericho, distracting HBK and allowing for Chris Jericho to launch a brutal attack, busting the Heartbreak Kid wide open. And this would lead to HBK versus Jericho, which was also one of the most technical and best wrestling matches at WrestleMania 19. So Royal Rumble 2003 had a lot of good to offer, but now we have to move in to 2004. Now we move on to the 2004 Royal Rumble, the Royal Rumble match that really we're not going to talk too much about. Not so much due to the fact that I don't think it should be covered, but due to the fact that I don't think we should spend a whole lot of time on it, due to the fact that the person who won the 04 Rumble in the Rabid Wolverine, Chris Benoit, committed the heinous crimes that he did, and it's probably best not to discuss much of it on this video, but you can't erase it from the history books because it did happen. Even if WWE wants to erase it, Chris Benoit did win the 2004 Royal Rumble after entering the match at number 1. I believe he could have been number 2. I might be wrong there, mixing it up. It was either 1 or number 2. And he ended up winning by eliminating the Big Show with a headlock, suplex style of front headlock over the top rope and getting his ticket to WrestleMania 20, where he would compete in a triple threat match for the World Heavyweight Championship between himself, Shawn Michaels, and the World Heavyweight Champion at the time in Triple H. Benoit would come out on top by making Triple H tap out and winning the World Heavyweight Championship, celebrating alongside the undisputed champion at the time in Eddie Guerrero to close out WrestleMania at Madison Square Garden. Now we get to the 2005 Royal Rumble, and this is one that I've talked about on my channel before, but I believe this to be the most important Royal Rumble, the most pivotal Royal Rumble in the shaping of the future of the WWE throughout the Ruthless Aggression Era. You know why that is not only because of the botches that took place inside the Royal Rumble match, especially concerning the ending with the double elimination between Raw's favorite superstar in Dave Bautista and SmackDown's favorite superstar in the United States Champion or former United States Champion in John Felix Anthony Cena. John Cena and Batista were the number 1 stars on Raw and SmackDown, and we did not know who was going to win the Royal Rumble. And it seemed as if nobody knew who was going to win the Rumble after both men's feet hit the floor after a botched reverse counter to the Batista bomb sent both Cena and Batista crashing to the floor with their feet hitting in synchronization on the floor below. John Cena's hand was raised by a SmackDown referee, Batista's hand was raised by a Raw referee, and you had Vincent Kennedy McMahon storming down to the ring and having so much pent-up rage that he stepped into the ring and blew his quads.
Excuse me while I whip this out!
On the road to WrestleMania, as McMahon sat in the center of the ring, or I guess off on the side of the ring, looking at both men, not due to the fact that he didn't know what to do, but due to the fact that he quite literally couldn't get up. The match was restarted. Batista was able to hit a spine buster and send John Cena down to the floor below, crowning him the winner of the Royal Rumble match and setting up his WrestleMania 21 match against his former Evolution leader in Triple H for the World Heavyweight Championship. John Cena would go on to WrestleMania to challenge the mega heel millionaire champion, the undisputed champion in John Bradshaw Layfield, and both men would finish their WrestleMania 21 main events holding the championships high above their head. Although John Cena lost, the ending to this Royal Rumble is extremely memorable. The ending to this Royal Rumble will never be forgotten, and it's due to a multitude of reasons, but it's mainly due to the fact that we had the cornerstones of the Ruthless Aggression Era move forward into the PG era and beyond and become multiple-time world champions. But Batista was the man on the night that punched his ticket to WrestleMania 21 at Madison Square Garden. The Royal Rumble 2006 actually had a little bit of an 04 feel to it, due to the fact that it wasn't the number 1, but the number 2 entrant in the WWE fans' favorite masked luchador, Rey Mysterio, competing for his friend who passed on in Eddie Guerrero to try to punch his ticket to WrestleMania 22. Mysterio would make it all the way through the field, defying all the odds, and it would come down to the final 2 competitors. The man who entered at number 30 in the Legend Killer Randy Orton, and the man who entered at number 2 in Rey Mysterio. Mysterio would end up sending Orton over the top rope with a Hurricane Rana, and his feet would hit the floor, and this would punch Mysterio's ticket to the grandest stage of them all at WrestleMania 22 in Chicago, Illinois. This was a feel-good moment for fans all around the globe because even though I myself wasn't the biggest Rey Mysterio fan, he had so many fans and so many young fans that wanted to see him win the big one at WrestleMania. And that's where we would head. WrestleMania 22, a triple threat match. Mysterio competing for his friend who passed on in Eddie Guerrero, sporting the EG armband, taking on the World Heavyweight Champion at the time in the Wrestling Machine Kurt Angle, and the man he eliminated to win the Royal Rumble in Randy Orton. Rey Mysterio would go on to hit a 619 into a Hurricane Rana and into a pin, and pin Randy Orton to become the new World Heavyweight Champion to cap off WrestleMania in the Windy City. This was a huge moment for WWE fans. This is one of the most memorable Royal Rumbles because it was the David versus Goliath, the little man beating the big man, the underdog reigning supreme, and that's exactly what Royal Rumble 2006 was remembered for. The Royal Rumble 2007 was another great example of a Rumble during the Ruthless Aggression Era. Not only did you have John Cena defending his WWE Championship in a street fight against Umaga, but you had the 30-man Rumble match. But let's start off with the street fight. Cena coming in as the defending champion before he really transformed into the man known as Super Cena. At this point, John Cena was still vulnerable as a superstar and as a champion, and he was taking on what looked like to be an unstoppable force in the Samoan bulldozer Umaga, accompanied by his mouthpiece and manager in Armando Alejandro Estrada. Now, Umaga looked like he could have beaten John Cena because he had already beaten him on an episode of Monday Night Raw. However, this was for the richest prize in the game, and we knew that Cena was going to pull out all the stops. And that's exactly what he did. In one of the best examples of a street fight in the modern era of the WWE, John Cena was able to conquer the Samoan bulldozer after strangling him in the STFU with the ring rope until Umaga passed out and was not able to get back to his feet. John Cena would retain the championship, and this became one of the best matches of John Cena's career and one of the most memorable street fights alongside John Cena versus JBL from Judgment Day in 2005. If you haven't seen that, make sure to go out of your way to check that out. But now let's move on to the 30-man Rumble. This Rumble was really remembered for a few things. Number one, it was one of the first Rumbles that Jeff Hardy competed in after he returned back to the WWE. Number two, it was a Royal Rumble that featured some of the ECW originals after the relaunch of WWE ECW, which I also have a video on that on my channel. I will put it in the description below so you can check that out if you have not. But it had the likes of the Sandman and Sabu, and Sabu even set up a table and then ended up being eliminated and thrown directly through the table that he set up. But this Royal Rumble really revolved around two men, The Undertaker and Shawn Michaels. Now, we're not going to get into their feud because aside from the Hell in a Cell in 1997, they would end up having a feud later on in the PG era, which would revolve around WrestleMania and The Undertaker's unbeaten streak, which I'm sure all of you already know if you're checking out this video. But the Rumble would come down to the Heartbreak Kid and the Demon of Death Valley, and it would be The Undertaker who would counter a super kick and toss Michaels over the top rope and claim his ticket to WrestleMania 23, where he would go on to defeat the World Heavyweight Champion in Batista and continue his WrestleMania undefeated streak at the time. But the Royal Rumble 2007 was an extremely good show. If you haven't checked it out, make sure to go out of your way to do so. And if there were two matches I would tell you to check out, it would be the WWE Championship match between Cena and Umaga and the Royal Rumble match where the dead man reigns supreme. The Royal Rumble 2008 is going to be the last Rumble that we discuss on this video. And coincidentally, it's one of my favorite Rumbles from the Ruthless Aggression Era, based mainly on the fact that it was a huge shock for me at the time. I did not expect John Cena to be in the Rumble in 2008, much less did anybody else, considering the fact that he had torn his pec back in October of 2007. Now, that was mainly the reason why Randy Orton and Triple H had their trio of matches, or I guess you could say Triple H had a trio of matches at No Mercy 2007 back in Chicago, Illinois, when Cena had to vacate the title due to an injury. Cena was expected to be out of action for at least 6 to 7 months, but he was able to return 3 months early and shock fans at Madison Square Garden, entering the Rumble at number 30 and winning the 30-man match after hitting an AA Attitude Adjustment, or FU, to Triple H over the top rope to claim his main event spot. This would set up a triple threat match at WrestleMania 24 between the champion at the time in the Legend Killer Randy Orton, transitioning from the Legend Killer into the Viper, but that was mainly in 2009, defending the championship against John Cena and Triple H. It would come as a shock because many would expect Cena to win the championship, However, it would be Randy Orton who would successfully defend the belt after Triple H hit a pedigree to Cena, and Orton would follow up with, in Jim Ross's words, a vile and remorseless punt kick, and then crawl into the cover on John Cena after Triple H did the damage, getting the 1-2-3. This would just elevate Randy Orton as a mega heel in 2008 and 2009. He was pretty much a mega heel from 2007 through the midpoint of 2010, but Cena would come up unsuccessful. I believe it was due to the fact that he was still partially recovering from his injury and he wasn't fully recovered yet, as he would take some time away in 2008 and then come back in November to challenge Chris Jericho for the World Heavyweight Championship. But needless to say, Royal Rumble 2008 was definitely memorable, and it was mainly due to the fact of the return of the person that nobody can see. And that is just about going to wrap us up for the coverage of the Royal Rumbles from the Ruthless Aggression Era from 2002 through 2008. I hope you enjoyed this trip down memory lane. I hope you enjoyed my coverage of these specific Rumbles and events. And if you did, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and smash the notification bell with a clothesline over the top rope to get ready for the 2025 Royal Rumble, and make sure you don't miss any future uploads from the premier mixed martial arts and pro wrestling channel on YouTube. I'm your host, Double M, and I'm out.